I'm Maya Chun, 25, and 3 weeks ago, my sister Emma sent me a text that changed everything. She told me I was socially inadequate and couldn't attend her wedding. Those words hit me like a punch to the gut, but instead of begging to be included, I did something that shocked my entire family. I booked myself a meditation retreat in Costa Rica. If you've ever been the family outsider, you'll understand why this decision became the best choice I ever made. Growing up as Maya Chin felt like being a puzzle piece from the wrong box. While my sister Emma was the perfect social butterfly who could charm anyone within minutes, I was the quiet, introspective one who found large gatherings overwhelming and small talk exhausting. Our parents, David and Linda Chen, were successful real estate agents who thrived on networking events and dinner parties. They had created another social success story in Emma, but I remained their beautiful mystery, the daughter they loved but never quite understood. Emma and I weren't always so different. When we were very young, she was actually protective of me. I remember her holding my hand at my 6th birthday party when the other kids were too loud, and she made sure I had a quiet corner to retreat to when I needed space. But as we grew older, especially after middle school, the gap between us widened dramatically. Emma embraced her role as the popular, outgoing sister, while I found solace in books, art, and the few close friends who appreciated my thoughtful nature. By high school, Emma had fully internalized our parents' social expectations. She was homecoming queen, head of the debate team, and dated the star quarterback. I was in advanced art classes, wrote for the school literary magazine, and had exactly 2 close friends who understood my need for deep conversations over surface-level chatter. "Why can't you just try harder to be normal?" became Emma's frequent refrain whenever I declined yet another social event or needed to step away from overwhelming situations. The breaking point came during my high school graduation party. Mom had invited 50 people to celebrate both Emma's acceptance to law school and my graduation. The noise, the constant congratulations, the pressure to be on for hours, it all became too much. I had what I now recognize as a sensory overload episode, retreating to my room in tears. Emma was mortified, especially when several of her law school friends witnessed my dramatic exit, as she called it. College at Portland State University became my sanctuary. Studying psychology and art therapy, I finally found my tribe, other sensitive, deep-thinking individuals who didn't see my quieter nature as a flaw. For the first time, I felt truly accepted. But every return home reinforced how differently I was perceived by my family. They saw my newfound confidence and self-acceptance as further evidence that I was becoming even more herself, as Mom once told her book club friends, the pause before herself speaking volumes. When Emma met Alexander Morrison during her final year of law school, I knew immediately he was the one. Not because of romance, but because he checked every box on the Chin family-approved partner list. He came from old Seattle money, had connections at every major law firm, and possessed the kind of effortless social grace that made networking look like an art form. His family's wealth wasn't just money, it was influence, the kind that opened doors and created opportunities. I was genuinely happy for Emma. Despite our growing distance, I wanted her to have the life she'd always dreamed of. When she called to announce their engagement, I congratulated her sincerely and listened to her elaborate plans for what she called the social event of the season. The Morrison family had connections to Seattle's most exclusive venues, and Emma was clearly thrilled to be marrying into such prestigious circumstances. "You'll be my maid of honor, of course," she said during that initial call. "We'll need to find you something that works with your sensitivities. Nothing too fitted, maybe in a color that won't draw attention. And we'll make sure you're not overwhelmed at any of the events." At the time, I was touched by what I interpreted as consideration. Looking back, I should have recognized the warning signs in her tone, the way she was already framing me as a potential problem to be managed rather than a beloved sister to be celebrated. For the next several months, I participated in wedding planning activities as best I could. I attended the engagement party, where I apparently committed the sin of correcting Alexander's mother about the historical details of their family estate when she got the facts wrong. I went to bridal brunches, though I occasionally needed to step outside when the restaurant noise became overwhelming. I tried on bridesmaid dresses, though some fabrics triggered my sensory sensitivities and required alternatives. What I didn't realize was that Emma was keeping a mental scorecard of every moment when I didn't conform to her vision of the perfect sister. Every time I needed a quiet break, every instance when my directness made others uncomfortable, every accommodation required for my sensory needs, she was building a case against me. It was a Thursday evening in March when my phone buzzed with a text from Emma. I was curled up in my apartment with a cup of tea and a book, enjoying a peaceful evening after a long day at the community art therapy center where I worked. The rain was pattering gently against my windows as I opened what I assumed would be another wedding update. Instead, what filled my screen was a message that would forever change our relationship. Maya, I've been thinking about this for weeks, and I need to be honest with you. I don't think you should be in the wedding party, or even attend the ceremony. Alexander's family is extremely important to Dad's business connections, and this wedding is essentially a networking event for our entire family. I love you, but you're socially inadequate for an occasion of this caliber. Your unpredictable behaviors and sensitivities would draw attention away from the celebration and potentially embarrass us in front of people whose opinions matter for our future. I hope you understand this isn't personal. It's practical. Maybe we can celebrate privately afterward. I read it once, twice, 3 times, each reading making the words cut deeper. Socially inadequate. The phrase burned itself into my mind, searing away any remaining illusions about my place in my sister's life. A second text followed. To be specific, at the engagement party, you corrected Mrs. Morrison about her family history in front of everyone. At the bridal brunch, you disappeared for 20 minutes because the music was too loud. During dress fittings, you made a scene about fabric textures. These are exactly the kinds of unpredictable behaviors we can't risk during the actual wedding. My hands shook as I tried to type a response. What could I possibly say? That I was sorry for existing as I authentically was? Instead, I called my mother, tears streaming down my face, certain she would find this exclusion as cruel as I did. Mom, I choked out when she answered. Emma just uninvited me from her wedding. She said I'm socially inadequate. The pause before her response told me everything I needed to know. Honey, she finally said, her voice carefully measured. Emma may have expressed herself harshly, but perhaps she has a point about the pressure of the day. You do get overwhelmed easily, and this wedding is very important for everyone's future. Maybe it would be less stressful for you to skip the big ceremony and just attend the small family gathering afterward. The betrayal was complete. My own mother was siding with Emma. So you agree with her, I said, my voice taking on a hollow quality I didn't recognize. You think I'm too embarrassing to be seen at my only sister's wedding. That's not what I said, Maya. Don't twist my words. We just want what's best for everyone, including you. I ended the call, unable to continue without completely falling apart. Dad called next, his attempt at mediation even more painful than Mom's tacit agreement with Emma. Princess, he said, using my childhood nickname that suddenly felt patronizing, your sister is under tremendous pressure. The Morrisons are very traditional, very conventional people. You've always marched to your own drum, and that's not a bad thing, but maybe for this one day. Maybe for this one day, I should cease to exist. I finished for him. He had no answer for that. After hanging up, I sat in the growing darkness of my apartment, my mind replaying a lifetime of moments when I'd been made to feel wrong or insufficient by the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. In that moment of complete isolation, something inside me shifted. Instead of breaking down, I felt an unexpected clarity emerge from the pain. I took screenshots of Emma's texts and sent them to my best friend Zoe with a simple message, I need you. Then I allowed myself to fully feel the rage and grief that had been building for years. I screamed into a pillow until my throat was raw. I threw the special maid of honor proposal box Emma had given me months earlier against the wall, watching with grim satisfaction as its contents scattered across my floor. For a moment, I contemplated showing up at the wedding anyway, making exactly the scene they feared. But as the initial shock faded, I realized that revenge wasn't what I truly wanted. What I needed desperately was healing and distance from people who couldn't see my worth. 30 minutes later, Zoe arrived with wine and ice cream. "Show me everything," she said, her eyes already blazing with protective fury. Zoe had been my closest friend since college, someone who not only accepted my differences, but celebrated them. Where others found my directness off-putting, Zoe appreciated my honesty. Where others were exhausted by my need for routine and quiet spaces, Zoe found it endearing. After reading Emma's messages, Zoe's response was immediate. That absolute witch. Socially inadequate. Is she casting for a debutante ball or having a wedding? For the next several hours, we sat on my living room floor, surrounded by comfort food as I poured out every painful detail. Zoe listened, occasionally offering colorful commentary about what Emma could do with her caliber wedding. "You could fight this," she said eventually. "Make a huge family stink, force them to acknowledge how cruel this is." "And then what?" I asked. "Sit through a wedding where I know I'm not wanted, where everyone's watching me, waiting for me to do something socially inadequate?" Or, Zoe suggested, you could completely ghost them. Block everyone's numbers. Don't respond to anything about the wedding. I considered both options, but neither felt right. That still lets them control the narrative. They'll tell everyone I had a meltdown or couldn't handle not being the center of attention. "What do you want to do then?" Zoe asked gently. The question hung in the air. What did I want? Not just about the wedding, but about my relationship with my family moving forward. "I need space," I finally said. Literal and emotional space. I can't make any decisions while I'm this hurt. After Zoe left, I couldn't sleep. On impulse, I opened my laptop and searched for healing retreats. Dozens of options appeared, but one immediately caught my attention: Pura Vida Wellness Retreat in Costa Rica. The website showed lush rainforests, simple accommodations, and programs focused on mindfulness, nature connection, and personal growth. Unlike many similar retreats, this one specifically mentioned being neurodiversity friendly, with options for private spaces and sensory-considerate programming. I checked the dates and felt a strange calm settle over me when I saw they had availability for a 10-day retreat that coincided exactly with Emma's wedding week. It was expensive, almost all of my modest savings, but as I looked at the serene images of tropical forests and meditation spaces, something clicked. At 2:47 a.m., I booked the retreat, putting down the non-refundable deposit before I could second-guess myself. Then I sent an email to my supervisor at the Art Therapy Center, requesting time off for personal reasons. For the first time since receiving Emma's text, I felt a spark of power return. If I wasn't adequate for their celebration, I would create my own journey of healing instead. Their rejection would become my redirection. Word traveled quickly through our family network. I hadn't planned to announce the retreat immediately, but Zoe had mentioned it to her mother during their weekly call, and somehow it reached my parents within days. My mother's call came 2 days after I'd booked the trip. A retreat? Her voice carried that particular blend of confusion and disapproval she'd perfected over the years. During Emma's wedding weekend? "Maya, please tell me this is some kind of negotiation tactic." "It's not a tactic, Mom. Emma made it clear I'm not welcome at the wedding. I'm using that time to take care of myself instead." "But she didn't mean you couldn't come at all. She was just worried about certain aspects being overwhelming for you." The careful rephrasing made my blood boil. "Mom, I have the text. She said I was socially inadequate and would embarrass the family." Those were her exact words. You know how Emma gets when she's stressed. She's under tremendous pressure with the Morrisons' expectations. She spoke harshly, but you agree with her," I finished. "You think I'm too embarrassing to be seen at my only sister's wedding." The conversation went in circles, my mother alternating between guilt trips. "This will break your father's heart." Minimization. It was just one thoughtless text. And outright manipulation. "If you really loved your sister, you'd understand." Dad's approach was more direct but equally painful. "Princess," I spoke with Emma. "She feels terrible about how she expressed herself. She says you're making this bigger than it needs to be." By refusing to beg for an invitation to my sister's wedding? By booking this retreat thing instead of working through this as a family. It looks like you're trying to punish her. That's interesting, Dad. I'm excluded from a major family event, and somehow I'm the one causing problems by making alternative plans. The timing makes it look intentional, Maya. It is intentional. I'm intentionally choosing not to sit home alone crying while my sister gets married without me. 3 days later, Emma herself called. I let it go to voicemail. Maya, this retreat stunt is exactly the kind of dramatic behavior I was worried about. You're making my wedding about you again. If you just apologized for being difficult during the planning process instead of running away, we could work something out. Mom and Dad are upset. Jackson's parents are asking questions, and I'm dealing with all of it. Call me back so we can fix this before you make things worse. I didn't call back. Instead, I sent a clear email to my immediate family. I will be attending the Pura Vida Wellness Retreat from May 10th to 20th. This is not up for discussion or negotiation. I will have limited phone access during this time to fully engage with the healing process. I wish Emma and Alexander a beautiful wedding day, and I hope someday you'll understand that this decision is about self-care, not punishment. I'll be in touch after I return. The extended family reactions were mixed. Some cousins sent supportive texts, but admitted they couldn't take sides. Others sent tone-deaf messages suggesting I just try harder for one day. But 2 unexpected allies emerged. My grandmother, my dad's mother, called me directly. I heard what's happening, she said, her voice carrying the wisdom of her 82 years. I want you to know that I remember what it was like when you were little. You weren't difficult. You were sensitive in a world that isn't made for sensitive people. Thanks, Grandma, I said, tears springing to my eyes. Your sister is wrong to exclude you, and your parents are wrong not to defend you. I've decided I won't be attending the wedding either.
No, y protested.
You shouldn't miss it because of me. I'm 82, dear. I've earned the right to spend my time only with people who know how to love properly. My other surprise defender was my Aunt Sarah, Mom's younger sister, who sent me a private message. Heard about the wedding drama. I think you're handling this with more grace than I would. Also, I did a similar retreat in Costa Rica after my divorce. Life-changing. Trust the process. Despite these pockets of support, the weeks leading up to my departure were emotionally draining. I watched from a distance as wedding preparations continued without me. Cake tastings, final dress fittings, rehearsal dinner plans. Each excluded moment was both a wound and confirmation that I'd made the right choice. The flight to San Jose felt like stepping into another world. As the plane descended over Costa Rica's lush landscape, I felt something inside me begin to shift. The retreat center van picked me up from the airport, and during the winding drive through tropical mountains, I started to believe that healing might actually be possible. Pura Vida Wellness Retreat was nestled in a cloud forest, with simple but beautiful accommodations scattered among towering trees. My private casita was perfect, a comfortable bed, a small writing desk by a window overlooking the forest canopy, and a private patio with a hammock and meditation cushion. Our group was small, just 10 participants, each carrying their own story of pain and hope for transformation. During our opening circle, I simply introduced myself as Maya and said I was seeking peace. Around me sat 9 strangers who would become unexpected companions. Jennifer, a burned-out teacher seeking renewal. Carlos, a recent widower learning to live alone. Rebecca, a corporate executive recovering from burnout. Thomas, a veteran dealing with PTSD. Lisa, a mother of 3 rediscovering herself after divorce. Michael, a former addict celebrating 2 years of sobriety. Sarah, a cancer survivor embracing life fully. David, a retired professor questioning his legacy. And Anna, a young artist struggling with anxiety. Our days fell into a gentle rhythm. Optional sunrise meditation, breakfast eaten in contemplative silence, morning group sessions focused on mindfulness and self-compassion, afternoon free time for hiking, journaling, or individual therapy, and evening gatherings for sharing and reflection. On the 3rd day, during a session about family dynamics, I finally shared my story. The words began flowing as our facilitator, Maria, guided us through an exercise about family roles and expectations. I'm here because my sister uninvited me from her wedding. I said, my voice catching. She said I was socially inadequate. My parents didn't defend me. The wedding is actually happening right now back in Seattle. The response was unlike anything I'd experienced in my family. Instead of judgment or attempts to fix the situation, I received pure acceptance and understanding. Jennifer reached over and squeezed my hand. Carlos nodded knowingly. Families know exactly where to aim the arrow, don't they? Thomas said quietly. One by one, the others acknowledged my pain without trying to explain it away or minimize it. No one suggested I was overreacting or being too sensitive. They simply witnessed my hurt with compassion. That afternoon, I joined a guided hike through the cloud forest with Rebecca, Lisa, and Anna. As we walked among ancient trees draped in moss and epiphytes, the vastness of the forest put my personal pain into perspective without diminishing it. These trees had weathered countless storms, yet remained rooted and strong. Sometimes, Maria said during our nature meditation, the forest teaches us that standing alone doesn't mean standing wrong. The words resonated through me like a bell struck in a cathedral. That evening, I sat on my casita's patio, listening to the forest's night symphony, howler monkeys in the distance, insects creating their intricate chorus, the gentle rustle of leaves in the night breeze. For the first time since Emma's text, I cried not from hurt but from release. Something was shifting inside me, creating space where before there had been only constriction. The next day, the actual day of Emma's wedding, I woke early and checked my phone despite my best intentions. There were missed calls from my parents and a text from Mom. It's not too late. We saved you a seat just in case. The message wasn't an apology or acknowledgement of harm done. It was one final attempt to fit me back into their narrative on their terms. I turned off my phone completely and joined the sunrise meditation circle instead. Later that morning, I had my scheduled one-on-one session with Maria. She listened attentively as I processed my feelings about the wedding happening without me. What surprises you most about how you feel today? She asked. I considered carefully. That I don't feel jealous or regretful. I feel peaceful, like I'm exactly where I need to be. That's powerful, Maria said. What does that tell you? That maybe I've been trying to belong in places that were never meant for me. That afternoon, while Emma was saying her vows 3,000 miles away, I was sitting by a waterfall, writing in my journal. I filled pages with insights about patterns I'd never noticed, how I'd internalized my family's judgments, how I'd learned to see myself through their critical lens, how I'd spent years contorting myself to fit into spaces that were fundamentally uncomfortable. When I returned to the retreat center, there was a message from Zoe with wedding photos attached. She'd attended as a family friend, partly to support my parents and partly for reconnaissance, as she put it. The images showed Emma looking conventionally beautiful in her designer gown, my parents smiling stiffly beside the couple, elaborate floral arrangements, and perfectly staged moments. Everything looked polished and impersonal. Everyone kept asking where you were, Zoe wrote. Your mom told people you had a prior commitment. Your dad looked miserable. Emma seemed completely in her element. You're not missing anything authentic. I sent back a photo from my forest hike, muddy boots, hair wild from humidity, smiling genuinely for the first time in months. Finding my peace, I replied. As the retreat continued, I formed unexpected connections with my fellow participants. During art therapy sessions, Anna and I discovered we both processed emotions through color in similar ways. Rebecca and I bonded over our shared love of structure and planning. Carlos became a grandfatherly presence, offering wisdom without judgment. On our second-to-last evening, the retreat held a release ceremony. We each wrote limiting beliefs and painful memories on banana leaves, then released them into a ceremonial fire while speaking our intentions for moving forward. When my turn came, I read what I'd written. I released the belief that I am socially inadequate. I am differently wired, not defective. I released the need for approval from those who cannot see my value. I released the pattern of shrinking myself to fit others' expectations. I stepped forward into authentic connection with those who can appreciate me exactly as I am. As the leaf curled and burned, I felt something final and necessary transforming within me. On our last morning, each participant shared one insight they were taking home. I've learned that peace isn't the absence of conflict, I said. It's the presence of self-acceptance, even when others disapprove. The return journey felt different. I was heading back to the same physical space, but not the same internal landscape. Something fundamental had shifted during my time in Costa Rica, not a dramatic transformation, but a quiet reclamation of truth. At the Seattle airport, Zoe was waiting with barely contained curiosity. "You look different," she said after hugging me. "More solid somehow, like you're fully inhabiting your own skin." It was exactly how I felt. The retreat hadn't erased my sensitivities or magically solved my family problems, but it had fundamentally shifted how I related to these experiences. Instead of shame, I felt simple acknowledgement. This is how my system works, and that's not wrong. Over the following weeks, I reintegrated into my regular life while maintaining practices from the retreat. I started each day with meditation, took regular nature breaks, and scheduled video calls with my retreat friends who had become genuine companions. My family's attempts at reconciliation were predictably mixed. Mom called repeatedly, alternating between guilt trips and curiosity about my retreat thing. Dad sent awkward texts trying to bridge the gap. Emma remained silent for 2 weeks before sending a casual message. "Back from honeymoon. Saw your Costa Rica photos. Looks nice. We should talk when things settle." No apology, no acknowledgement of harm, just a casual message as if she'd merely forgotten to invite me to lunch. I replied simply, "I'm glad your wedding went well. I'm open to talking when you're ready to acknowledge what happened and how it affected me." Her response was swift and defensive. I said what I needed to say to protect my wedding day. "You're turning this into a bigger deal than it was." This time, I didn't engage in a circular argument. The old Maya would have been desperate to make Emma understand. The new Maya recognized that wasn't my responsibility. I'd stated my boundary clearly. The rest was up to her. 3 months after the retreat, something unexpected happened. I received a job offer from a nonprofit organization focused on art therapy for neurodivergent individuals. The position was perfect for my skills and sensitivities, meaningful work in an environment designed to accommodate different ways of being. That evening, I video chatted with my retreat group, who had maintained our connection. As I shared the news, their genuine celebration reminded me that authentic relationships were possible with people who appreciated rather than merely tolerated differences. The position led to other opportunities, speaking at conferences about neurodiversity in therapy, consulting with schools about inclusive practices, and eventually starting my own practice specializing in supporting sensitive individuals and their families. 6 months after the wedding, Emma called to tell me she was pregnant. After my congratulations, she said something that surprised me. "I've been thinking about how I want to raise this child. I don't want them to ever feel the way you felt growing up, like there was something wrong with them for being who they are." It wasn't a full apology, but it was perhaps the beginning of understanding. As I reflect on this journey from exclusion to self-acceptance, I realized that Emma's cruel text ultimately gave me an unexpected gift. Being labeled socially inadequate forced me to confront the ways I'd internalized others' perceptions of me. The peace I found wasn't despite the rejection, but because of how it pushed me to seek healing on my own terms. I still have days when social situations overwhelm me. I still sometimes speak too directly or miss subtle cues. I still need quiet spaces and understanding. The difference is that I no longer see these needs as flaws to apologize for, but simply as aspects of who I am, a unique, worthy individual who experiences the world in her own valid way. My family relationships have evolved slowly. There have been setbacks and old patterns that emerge under stress, but there have also been meaningful changes. My parents now make efforts to create more inclusive family gatherings. They ask questions about my experience rather than assuming they understand it. Emma and I maintain a more distant but honest relationship than before. Most importantly, I've built a chosen family of people who value my authentic self. My retreat friends, colleagues who share my passion for inclusive practices, clients who trust me with their own journeys toward self-acceptance. These relationships nourish me in ways I never thought possible. If you've ever felt excluded for being different, please know there's nothing wrong with you. The right people will value your authentic self not despite your differences, but because of the unique perspective and depth they bring. You aren't socially inadequate. You're uniquely suited for connections that honor your true nature. Sometimes the path to peace begins with the courage to walk away from situations that diminish your worth and towards spaces that celebrate who you truly are. That retreat in Costa Rica didn't just give me a break from family drama. It gave me back to myself.